Parents, what do your kids think they're hiding from you? My 14-year-old daughter thinks she's been secretly dating a boy from her class for the past 3 months. Every Thursday after school, she tells me she's studying at the library, but instead goes to the ice cream shop across the street to meet him. The first time I found out was completely by accident. I was picking up my coffee from the shop next door when I spotted her sharing a banana split with this red-headed kid. Both of them giggling and awkwardly avoiding eye contact. It was honestly adorable. Instead of confronting her, I decided to play along. I wanted to see how far she'd go with this secret. The next Thursday, she casually mentioned studying at the library again. I watched her fix her hair 3 times before leaving and apply the lip gloss I didn't know she owned. That's when I started having fun with it. Every Thursday morning, I'd leave an extra $10 on the counter, pretending to forget my coffee money. She'd snatch it up when she thought I wasn't looking, probably thinking she'd hit the jackpot. I also started making comments about the ice cream shop just to watch her squirm. You know, that place has the best banana splits in town, I'd say during dinner. She'd nearly choke on her food while her younger brother would look at her weird. Once I even walked into the ice cream shop while they were there. The panic on her face was priceless. She ducked under the table so fast she knocked over their milkshake. The poor boy just sat there covered in vanilla shake, looking absolutely terrified. I pretended not to notice and ordered my ice cream to go. The best part was watching her try to explain why she smelled like vanilla when she got home. "The library got new air fresheners," she said completely straight-faced. I nodded seriously and said, "Must be expensive ones. They smell just like the ice cream shop's homemade vanilla." She started getting creative with her cover-ups. She'd bring old library books from her room to show me what she'd checked out. Once she even made a fake library card that looked like it was made with construction paper and clear tape. The funniest incident was when she came home with ice cream stains on her shirt. Without missing a beat, she launched into this elaborate story about how someone at the library had smuggled in a sundae and spilled it. "You wouldn't believe how strict they are about food in there now, Mom," she said earnestly. I decided to step up my game. I started leaving brochures for the ice cream shop on the kitchen table. "They're having a Thursday special," I'd mentioned casually. "Buy 1 banana split, get another half off. Perfect for studying sessions." She'd get this deer in headlights look every time, but would quickly recover. "That's nice," she'd say. Voice slightly higher than normal, but I'm lactose intolerant. She's never been lactose intolerant in her life. Last week, she came home with a permission slip for a library study group that meets every Thursday. The form looked suspiciously like it was written in the same handwriting as her English homework. I signed it without comment, watching her try to hide her victorious smile. Yesterday was the cherry on top. I ran into the boy's mother at the grocery store. Before I could say anything, she launched into this whole story about how her son is finally taking his studies seriously with his Thursday library sessions. We both kept straight faces, but I could see her trying not to laugh. I'm still waiting for my daughter to come clean. Meanwhile, I've started a collection of all her fake permission slips, library cards, and elaborate excuses. I plan to frame them and give them to her on her wedding day. Maybe by then she'll finally admit that the library's new air fresheners were actually just ice cream all along. But the real kicker, last night at dinner, she casually mentioned that the library is thinking of installing an ice cream vending machine. For brain food, she explained seriously. I nearly spit out my 14-year-old daughter thinks she's been secretly dating a boy from her class for the past 3 months. Every Thursday after school, she tells me she's studying in the library, but instead, she sneaks off to the ice cream shop across the street to meet him. The first time I found out was completely by accident. I was picking up coffee from the shop next door when I saw her sharing a banana split with a shy red-headed kid. Both giggling, awkwardly avoiding eye contact. It was honestly adorable. Instead of confronting her, I decided to play along and see how far she'd take this secret. The next Thursday, she mentioned yet again that she'd be at the library. I watched her fix her hair 3 times and apply lip gloss I didn't know she owned. I started having fun with it. Every Thursday morning, I left an extra $10 on the counter, pretending to forget my coffee money. She'd snatch it up, thinking she'd hit the jackpot. I also dropped comments about the ice cream shop. That place has the best banana splits in town, just to watch her squirm during dinner. One time, I even walked into the ice cream shop while they were there. Her panic was priceless. She ducked under the table so fast she knocked over their milkshake. The poor boy sat there, soaked in vanilla shake, terrified. I ordered ice cream to go, pretending not to notice. When she came home smelling like vanilla, I asked about it. "The library got new air fresheners," she said deadpan. "Must be expensive ones," I replied seriously. "They smelled just like that ice cream shop's homemade vanilla." She got creative with cover-ups, bringing old library books from her room or making a fake library card from construction paper and tape. Once she came home with ice cream stains on her shirt, claiming a sneaky library mate spilled a sundae. "You wouldn't believe how strict they are about food now," she said earnestly. "I even started leaving brochures for the shop on the kitchen table. Buy one banana split, get one half off on Thursdays. Perfect for study sessions." She gave me a deer-in-headlights look but recovered quickly with, "That's nice, but you know I'm lactose intolerant." She isn't lactose intolerant. Last week she brought home a permission slip for a library study group on Thursdays, handwriting suspiciously matching her English homework. I signed it silently, watching her hold back a victorious smile. Yesterday, I ran into the boy's mother at the grocery store. Before I could say a word, she started talking about how her son's finally serious about studying thanks to his Thursdays at the library. We exchanged smirks but played it cool. I'm still waiting for my daughter to confess. Meanwhile, I'm collecting all her fake permission slips, library cards, and excuses, planning to frame them for her wedding day. Maybe then she'll finally admit the library's new air fresheners were just ice cream all along. But the real kicker? Last night at dinner, she casually mentioned the library might install an ice cream vending machine. "For brain food," she explained seriously. Nearly spit out my drink laughing. Story 2 labeled an ugly high school grad and rejected by my wife's family of doctors. I met them again. 9 years later at my wife's sister's wedding. My mother-in-law said, "Why is this defect here?" My wife's sister mocked, "You are not invited." Her husband declared, "How dare you? This man is—" I smiled and said, "You have no idea, do you?" Chapter 1. The wedding confrontation. The hall glittered with chandeliers. Every guest dressed to perfection. Doctors, professors, and respectable family friends mingled as the wedding music played. For them, it was a day of prestige, another jewel in their family's crown. Then I walked in. My mother-in-law's face twisted the second she saw me. She didn't even lower her voice. "Why is this defect here?" she spat, her words sharp enough to cut through the chatter. Heads turned. A few guests stifled laughter. Others simply watched, waiting for the drama they all secretly craved. My wife's sister, radiant in her gown, smirked as if she'd been waiting for this moment. "You're not invited," she mocked. "We don't need an ugly high school grad ruining our wedding photos." Laughter rippled across the room. Smug, cruel. Exactly, as it had been 9 years ago when they first labeled me as unworthy. But before I could respond, her husband, the groom, raised his voice, his face pale with disbelief. "How dare you? This man is—" I smiled, cutting him off gently. My eyes swept the room, lingering on my wife's family, then back to the groom. "You have no idea, do you?" I said softly. The laughter stopped. Whispers filled the silence, because behind my calm smile lay the truth they'd never imagined. A truth that would unravel everything they thought they knew. Chapter 2. 9 years of silence. The past. They mocked. Years earlier, I had walked into their home as nothing more than a young man with a high school diploma marrying into a family of doctors. They dismissed me as a failure, laughed at my lack of credentials, and made sure I never forgot it. My mother-in-law called me the ugly mistake her daughter made. My wife's sister paraded her degrees, comparing me to her successful circle, Atiwa, family dinners. They'd smile politely to outsiders, but whisper their disdain the moment backs were turned. I bore it all in silence, not because I was weak, but because I was building something they could never imagine. The years they didn't see. While they laughed, I worked. I started small. Odd jobs, late nights, sacrifices no one applauded. Then, Came the break, an opportunity to apprentice under an entrepreneur who taught me the ropes of real estate and investments. What they thought was my disappearance was really my transformation. By the time 9 years passed, I had built a chain of businesses under my name, quietly successful. Investments in medical technology startups, the very field my wife's family worshipped. A reputation in circles far outside theirs where my work ethic mattered more than my diploma. But I never flaunted it, not once. I waded back to the wedding. Now standing in that glittering hall, mocked as the defect once again. I knew the stage was perfectly set. The groom, the only one in that family who looked at me with respect, had seen glimpses of my life outside these walls. That's why his face had turned pale, why he'd tried to stop their ridicule. And now, with every guest's eyes on me, I smiled and said calmly, "You have no idea, do you?" Because the truth wasn't just about who I had become, it was about the trap they had walked into, one that would flip this wedding upside down. Chapter 3. The Reveal. The room freezes. The hall went silent after my words. My wife's sister still smirked in her gown, but unease flickered in her eyes. Guests leaned in, sensing something more than a family squabble. The groom shifted uncomfortably, as if holding back the truth. I let the silence stretch just long enough before stepping forward. "You've spent 9 years calling me an ugly defect, mocking me for not having a degree. But here's the part you've all missed. While you were busy laughing, I was busy building." The truth drops. I gestured toward the groom. "Tell them, Daniel." The groom hesitated, then squared his shoulders. His voice rang clear through the hall. "This man is one of the major investors in the medical research firm that gave me my career. Without his backing, I wouldn't be standing here today. In fact, half the advancements this family brags about at conferences were funded by his capital." Gasps erupted. Faces turned pale. The same people who sneered at me minutes earlier now gawked in disbelief. Their arrogance shattered. My mother-in-law stammered, "No, that's not possible. He's just a high school graduate." I finished for her, smiling. "Yes, that's what you called me. But degrees don't measure vision, discipline, or resilience." I paused, my voice calm but cutting. "You locked me out of your family, but without knowing it, you've been eating at my table this entire time." The twist. And then I delivered the final blow. "Oh, and one more thing. This venue, the one you're celebrating in tonight?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded deed. "It's mine. Bought it last year, so technically, I let the words sink in. You invited yourselves to my house." The hall erupted in whispers, some laughter, some gasps. My wife's sister's face drained of color, her smugness replaced by a trembling silence. Chapter 4. The wedding unravels. The silence before the storm. The words, "This venue is mine," hung heavy in the air. Guests froze, forks halfway to their mouths, wine glasses trembling in midair. My wife's sister clutched her gown, the color draining from her face. My mother-in-law opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again, but no words came out. For years, they had laughed at me, dismissed me, labeled me as the defect. Now, in front of every peer and family friend they had worked so hard to impress, their arrogance was exposed as baseless. The guest shift whispers spread like wildfire. "He owns the venue." Didn't they call him a failure? He funded their careers. The once smug guests who had snickered at my arrival now looked at me with a mixture of respect and unease. A few even raised their glasses discreetly in my direction. The high groom, realizing the tide had shifted, stood firmly by my side. His voice was calm but commanding. "From this day on, you will show him respect. Without him, I wouldn't be standing here as your son-in-law." The room erupted in gasps. He hadn't just defended me. He had aligned himself against his new in-laws on his wedding day. Thame collapse. My wife's sister tried to salvage her pride. "This is still my wedding," she shouted, but her voice cracked. The guests weren't listening. They were watching her unravel, exposed, humiliated in the very hall she thought symbolized her family's superiority. Her mother, trembling with rage, spat at me one last time. "You think this makes you better than us?" I leaned in slightly, keeping my voice steady so every guest could hear. No, it doesn't make me better. It just proves I was never less. The applause started softly, a few claps from the back, then grew until half the hall joined in. Not for the bride, not for the family of doctors, but for the man they had tried to erase. The lesson. In one night, their empire of arrogance collapsed. 9 years of ridicule were erased with a single truth. I had built what they could only dream of, and I had done it without their approval, without their degrees, and without their respect. They labeled me the defect, but the only flaw in the room was their arrogance. Epilogue. Years later, their fall from grace. The wedding that was supposed to elevate my wife's family became their undoing. People remembered the humiliation, the gasps, the applause that had gone to me instead of them. My mother-in-law never lived it down. At every social gathering, someone would whisper, "Isn't she the one who called her son-in-law a defect at her daughter's wedding?" Her arrogance shrank into silence. My wife's sister, once so proud of her title as doctor's daughter, could no longer flaunt her status without someone reminding her of the night her husband declared his loyalty to me instead. The family name, once respected in their medical circles, became associated with their downfall, not their achievements. The brilliance they once claimed to own had dimmed forever. My quiet rise. Meanwhile, I thrived. My businesses expanded. My investments in medical technology blossomed. And my network of partners grew to include some of the very colleagues who had once mocked me. Not because I flaunted my success, but because I carried it with quiet strength. At home, I lived in peace, no longer burdened by trying to earn respect from people who never intended to give it. Instead, I built my legacy on the foundations they ignored: resilience, patience, and integrity. The lesson. They tried to label me, they tried to erase me, but the only thing they succeeded in doing was exposing their own weakness. At the wedding, I told them, "You have no idea, do you?" Now, years later, they do, and the truth will follow them forever. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you think about this story in the comments below. Like the story. If you think this story is justified,